Welcome, folks. Tonight, for basically as long as y'all want, we're going to be discussing the Far East Council's redistricting. This Zoom call is the product of many hours of work from a task force that was commissioned by Mr. Doug Hymas, the president of the Far East Council, which was comprised of at least two, if not three individuals from each of the previous four districts of the Far East Council, with myself as the lead and Mr. Mark Francis as the note taker, secretary, and advisor. Uh, it has been vetted by the council executive board. We've had many questions that we have gone back, deliberated, and answered to the best of our ability. And tonight, we're going to discuss a few of the wave tops here. Again, happy to talk about any of the topics or questions that are on your mind. But I am going to try to keep this high level, and I am going to be talking about how we together move into the future of the Far East Council and what we could do better to serve the youth. Just again, that's the reminder of the goal here, how better to serve the youth. So we'll jump into it. Most of you will recognize this map. This is the map of what was the four districts of the Far East Council, with their previous district names. There on the upper right-hand side in the legend, it was Asia East, which consisted of mainland Japan, Asia West, which consisted of South Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, China, and Mongolia, and then moving into Asia South, which pretty much consisted of the geography of Southeast Asia from India all the way down through Indonesia to Australia, and then as well as the Pacific Islands to include Fiji. Uh, and then Asia Central, which included the island of Okinawa, again pictured right there in the center of the screen, sort of to the upper right. Uh, and so just to cover some of the basics, the bylaws of the Far East Council, Article 8, Section 1, basically says for the purposes of area service and administration, the corporation may be divided geographically into districts as the executive board from time to time determines, subject to the rules and regulations of the Boy Scouts of America doing business as Scouting America, and the corporation shall supervise scouting in each of the districts through active members of the local council residing within each of the districts, and such district members shall be duly elected. So that section has been enacted by the council executive board via task force, and we have all arrived to the conclusion, which will be on the next slide. So what you'll now see are the three new districts, alphabetically determined to be District A, B, and C. We'll get to naming here in a second. The first of the three districts by alphabetical order include Australia, Fiji, the mainland of Japan, Philippines, and Taiwan. The second district, District B, by alphabetical order, includes Cambodia, the island of Okinawa, Japan, India, Indonesia, Malaysia, Nepal, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. District C, or the third district, includes alphabetically China, Hong Kong, Mongolia, and South Korea. Now, some of the purposes of the task force was to reach an informed course of action or two in order for council leadership, meaning the executive board and the executive committee, to discuss and to make a final determination, which was conducted during a separate meeting. The output of the task force was to provide Google Sheets formatted much like you see here. This one was done in alphabetical order, and that was sent out and attached to the executive board members and the executive committee members and was voted on. Our timeline was swift. We met first in November, again in December, and the final decision was made in January. This timeline supports implementation prior to and culminating in the council's annual meeting which is coming up here in February to be held in Tokyo, Japan. Some of our requirements, which were not negotiable, and these were the reasons and the impetus for our change, is that there would be only three districts. All district compositions would change as a result of this task force, so that no district was left the same. And then the other main driver, and this is the one we focused on, is that the districts will serve similar but not perfectly split numbers of registered youth. Over time, the last set of districts was created approximately a decade ago when the current countries of the Far East Council were formed as a result of direct service and many other countries spreading the scouting program in the Far East. And it's been about 10 years, and a lot has changed, not only in scouting, but also worldwide. We've been through a lot, such as the pandemic, for one example. And now we're back and we are healthy as an organization. And the goal of this is to remain a healthy organization with enough district serving executives. That's our paid professional staff, headed up by Mr. Mark Francis, in order to serve proper amounts of youth throughout the council. And our council is highly unique in that it includes many different countries. And, you know, those of you who've been in stateside councils, this may be just a couple counties, it may be a state, but it's certainly not as wide of a swath of geography and many different cultures and areas of the world that we serve. Uh, again, we discussed a lot of pros and cons. It was a small group, again, consisting of just a couple from each of the former districts. And then our forum for wider discussion was the council executive board. The task force was not the genesis of the decision. It was the result of many deliberations. The task force did not name the districts. That's a job we're going to talk about here in a second. And the forum was decided so that we would get input from those throughout the council. This webinar, one of the purposes of this is to roll out the decision that's been made, to accept questions, to accept feedback, and then, a lot of it, unless I have the answers because of the deliberations of the task force, we're going to take down notes and then consider, again, as the bylaws say, from time to time, we can make changes. So, by no means is this the next 100 years of the Far East Council, but this is the future and what we are going to strive to move towards right now. With that, I'll pause here on the geography part before I get to the renaming section, just to see if I've sparked any initial questions or thoughts from anybody in the audience. And you can put it in chat if you'd wish, or you could feel free to unmute and add your voice.
What, dude?
This is Jaron Price from Troop 34. I'm in outside of Tokyo, Japan.
Hi,
You
Jared.
mentioned one of the criteria was, to kind of evenly, do different groups of scouts by population. I was just wondering, like District A, does it have does each of them roughly have like 500 scouts or 1,000 scouts or 200, or are there what are the numbers out there that the new districts look like as far as scouts or troops or different things like that?
That's a great question. What I can tell you is the numbers change a lot from time to time. Certainly, they have changed since the turn of the year, when a lot of folks have not yet re-registered or they're in the grace period. So looking up the numbers now might not do much justice. But at the end of the year, District A was serving approximately 28% of the council. District B was serving approximately 36% of the council, and District C was serving approximately 36% of the council. It's about 1,000 scouts each, give or take.
And what countries tend to have our biggest, populations? I'm assuming like South Korea, Japan, I don't know, as far as
That's a good question. The largest serving population is mainland Japan, followed closely by China, mainland China, and then followed there by South Korea and Okinawa. The percentages there are about 19%, 17%, 13%, and 10%. So those are by far our four largest uh, constituencies, if you would.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Great questions. And again, as the year goes on, we'll have more answers, and certainly if those centers of gravity shift in the future years, then this will be again a task force that'll be called upon to meet again. Good questions. Okay, again, anytime you do have a question, please feel free to share. Uh, oh, we got one popped in. Just to confirm, recommendations made by the task force were unanimously proposed as opposed to single person driven. That is correct. The task force had to provide a unified recommendation to the council executive board. There was no single person that drove anything. Thanks for the question, Dale. That was the point of the task force, uh, so that it was a group of people, not an individual acting on their own. Great questions. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and move into, if I can somehow get my uh, slides to behave. There we go. We'll move into the naming. Again, we're going to move fast here. There is no reason for us to take so much time to figure out the new way of doing business. So we don't see a reason to drag this stuff out. So district naming proposals will be due February 14th. Gives everybody just under 2 weeks. Uh, any individual in the council are welcomed to submit district names to myself, which will then be collected and distributed to the district committees for deliberation, consideration, and ultimately the districts will submit their desires for approval to the executive board and the executive committee. Anybody can make submissions, like I said, and they can make submissions for their own district. That's fine. They can make three submissions, one for each district. That's great. Or they could put together a coherent, complementing naming system and submit basically a package deal uh, to complement the council, perhaps something that aligns with our identity as the Far East Council, and show a unified approach through their naming. All that, again, I'll neatly package it up, hand it over to the districts so that they can deliberate, again, very quickly amongst the district committees. And then we're going to basically roll out the answers at the council annual meeting after a very quick review and discussion by the executive committee and the executive board. And my
Hi,
email's down
Dan.
there on the bottom. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Dan. This is Anand. Have you received any suggestions right now, or do you have any framework for the names so that, or guidance so that we propose names within that guidance?
Uh, there's no guidance on naming because again, I can first off, you can go to many different councils, have many different names as far as how they name their districts. What I did was I searched around for some councils who've had recent changes, just again to alleviate some of the anxiety in this process. What I found is that a lot of the time, first off, remind yourself of our mission, right? The name of the district is moderately irrelevant. Our mission is to prepare young people to make ethical and moral choices over their lifetimes by instilling in them the values of the Scout Oath and the Scout Law. The name of the district alone doesn't accomplish this mission. So while you sit down and you deliberate amongst yourself for submissions, don't get bent around the axle about the naming. Okay, we're going to get names. The naming will be done here in the next 2 weeks. There will be names of districts, and we're going to move forth with the mission of the Boy Scouts of America. That's it. From what I found is, District X, something will be along the lines of, please note, As of January 28th, 2025, the district boundaries have changed, and the name of the district is now District X of the Far East Council Scouting America. A little bit about our district. District X serves youth in the countries of list of countries and is part of the Far East Council. It is home to over 90, 100, 1,000 traditional scouting units, serving over 1,000, 2,000 youth, whatever the numbers wind up being. The Again, the over under on district names could be anything. Uh, I'll take my own home council. When I grew up as a kid, I was in the Battleground district of Monmouth Council. There was three districts only: Battleground, Twin Lights, and Thunderbird. Battleground district was named very simply because Battlefield Park, which was one of the Civil War battlefields, was in that part of the county, and we named it Battleground, and it's held that name for almost 110 years at this point. Uh, Twin Lights, there was a big double lighthouse, had two light tops on it. Twin Lights District, right? Now, of course, that is one county in one state in the United States. So you can imagine that out here, with the breadth of countries and the area that we take up, the names can be really anything. Uh, I did have one suggestion just from one of the members of the executive board. Uh, Again, it had to do with kind of historical or geographical naming, like the Pacific Rim District has come up in conversations. There's been talk of, again, geographical type, like, Southeast Silk Road or something like that. All these names are fine. It just depends on the district and whether or not the name kind of fits into the overall motif. If you wanted to call it like the Rocky Mountain District, that would be probably rejected because the Rocky Mountains are back in the United States. Uh, so it doesn't really fit the bill, if that helps. But again, I don't have any direction, and I wouldn't want to be the one to influence folks to choose something in either way. So I've purposely come up with no decisions of my own or no input of my own at this moment.
Which is slander. Can't be purposely going out of your way to annoy me.
Hi, Robert, can you please mute? Eric had a question. What were the district names the last time we had three districts? I do not believe we must have had three districts. To be quite honest, I don't remember. I'm not even sure we had three.
Justin may remember.
Yeah, Justin Wentworth.
They were country specific, except Okinawa at the time called themselves, at one point changed their name to Great Okinawa District instead of just Okinawa District when we inherited some other areas at one point.
So it was South Korea District, Japan District, and Okinawa District.
Exactly. And then eventually Thailand, and we had Taiwan before that, and it gets a little complicated, but yeah.
Yep. And then when we disestablished direct service and we gained many countries, the deliberations basically just were decided that it would just be purely by geographical location. So that's where he came up with Asia East, Asia Central, Asia South, and Asia West. So that there was not a lot of thought put into those names, I'll tell you that much.
Dan, I have a question. It's going to be hard for me to explain, so I'm going to jump into talking about the OA briefly. EO is typically smaller, but a chapter is usually district. Is that correct? Associated with a district.
I'm not going to speak for the lodge, but the lodge, yes, is going to
The lodge
conform
is the
to the
council,
districts.
right? So
Yep, the chapters will conform to the districts.
Right. In a council, we don't have the luxury of saying, well, we're going to have a district that includes some subset similar to what a clan is in a OA organization. We don't have that ability, and if I'm not mistaken, we don't have the ability to call something that. I don't know what it would be anyway, whether it would be a zone or I don't know.
Yeah, so I was prepared for this question. If you'd give me 1 second, I'm gonna pull it up. Uh, I offer this as a means of not only satisfying Dale's question, but also a means for understanding where the Far East Council is at as an organization. So we only have at this moment a scout executive and a district executive. That is it. We have a few of what we call the support staff, the council registrar, the program support, administrative support, that kind of stuff. But those aren't the executive staff that are the district serving executives. Larger councils have exactly what you're getting at, Dale. And I'm going to put it up. And I don't. We are not going to do this. I'm just going to flat out tell everybody because we do not have executives to support this. And this is a very large council. I'm going to show you that has 28 districts. Okay, we have 4. This is a very large council. We are not going to do this. They have what's
We
called
have three.
service.
We have three, right?
Well, 3. Sorry, we had 4. We're now having 3. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm adjusting myself. Uh, they have what's called service areas, and each of these service areas have a field director who is a paid employee of that council, and they serve a grouping of districts, not just one. Each of these districts also has a district executive. So you can see this council has probably 60 executives if you add up all the directors, the district executives, the senior district executives, the council scout exec. I think they have several assistant council scout executives. And you'll see they've broken it down into different areas with different districts. And this is one of the districts that tends to have a lot of change because they keep absorbing the councils around them. As those councils dissolve and fold, this council assumes control of the scouting organizations, meaning all of our chartered organizations. They assume control of the organizations in the failing councils around it. So they have to do a lot of change, and change is okay. But you'll see, the Francis Scott Key District got renamed Frederick District. Frederick happens to be a city in Maryland. So they just named it straight up after the city. You could go ahead and call, the district with Japan in it the Tokyo District, if that's what you so choose. Again, this is a collaborative effort, but I'd offer we're probably not going to be naming things after one single city, and so on and so forth. But you can see the vastness of that option, and which is the reason why we won't be doing that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I'm not suggesting we bunch of DEs or service area support staff, but in naming, perhaps we do use service with the understanding that they all fall under the district. And that district leadership is fixed. There's no extra people that we're calling. It's just a naming protocol, not necessarily a hierarchical structure of staffing or anything else. That was and that basically then gives some of the service areas the ability to self-identify. No, we're the Kiwi, we're the Kiwi service area, for example, for Australia or whatever, or New Zealand. Sorry, Australians.
Yeah, and so what Colin is getting at in the chat is, and Rob Keister messaged me as well, and this was somewhat on the commissioning side, somewhat, but it was also within one region. So Asia East, the mainland to Japan had zones, right? Because even though Japan's not massive, it was very difficult to get from the southern end of mainland Japan to the northern end of mainland Japan. So we broke it into zones. But the zones had, again, the naming of the zones didn't matter. It was just divvying up the responsibility for the commissioners at that point. And Colin, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was pretty much built around commissioners. Uh, there were no zone activities. Maybe some things were held time to time, but it wasn't, uh, you know, in other words, it doesn't add a hierarchy like Dale, like you mentioned. Uh, and again, Roger, except the districts still need a name. Again, we went with Southeast and West and Central. So you could totally just leave it District A, B, and C. And then we can just totally name every country the name of their country. Uh, I just don't know to what end. And that's why I go back to uh, offering the I offer the mission of the Boy Scouts of America is not to provide youth with cool district names or cool zone names. The program was it, we I just I'm the first person to say the word program. So we didn't discuss program because program will continue the way program is continuing. It will be a seamless process and hopefully an improvement once we do hire two new district executives, which is the plan of the executive board and the executive committee is throughout the next year or so is to hire two more permanent full-time district executives. So each district gets one executive, which is the standard. So again, you can break it down, but there's no, I'll put it this way, Dale, there's no way for us in the system like my.scouting to further reduce the hierarchy. So it would be just simply in name.
Or an administrative effort, Dan, and the district can choose how they organize and how they
Yep.
minister. So it's just on their level how they choose to do that. But it wouldn't, like you say, it wouldn't be in the system.
It precisely, Mark. And I wouldn't pretend to reach into the district and say like, oh, you know, India has to meet with Singapore. India can't just meet with Nepal and Thailand. Like, I'm not going to tell them what to do. If that's the way they want to split up their district and they only want to meet in certain sections, then it's up to the district. However, the district serves the entire district, so they can't ignore one section or forsake one section of a district for the others.
Right. Yeah. My think was really around some areas being able to self-identify and not that they need a cool name or anything, but because they had local consensus or zone of focus to say, hey, we are this zone and it's all of this area, and we of course will provide scouting to anybody outside of that if they really want to do it outside, but they've got to be district to provide it. That's the point I was trying to get to.
Yeah, and I think you're exactly right. The zone would have no standing. It would
Right.
literally just be for identity purposes.
There's
And
no zone leader, there is no
yep,
zone organization,
yep.
it's all district, and sure, hey, if the X wants to contribute 3 people into the district and help run the district program at that level, hey, great, we're happy for that, but don't try to pull it all in. We're going to ignore the rest of the district because we're number one now, or we have a commanding voice. That's not how it should work. So,
Right. And actually, you're getting into a wider discussion of where we go in the future, right? The
yeah,
point of
yeah,
this,
yeah. I
the
didn't want to
point
go
of
down
this
that
is
road, but
actually the point of this is actually to stop that, right? So I caution creating these little zones or subsections of these districts because you're doing exactly what we actually want to stop, which is everyone trying to push others out or to say that they control a certain thing. I think what we need to do right now is focus on our three new districts and the three new identities of these districts and not try to segment ourselves away and create another scouting identity where we do this separate from the larger entity, which is the district. That's my caution, again, over to the district committees if they wish to carve themselves up deeper. Sarah, you're coming in broken if you know. If that's Sarah or Amos, I can't really hear you.
It's me, it's Sarah. It's Sarah. I'm
You're
sorry.
not you're not coming through, Sarah. Sorry, you're coming through like a robot. All right, while we're waiting for Sarah to maybe type it out or get to a better Wi-Fi spot or service spot, anybody else have any other questions or comments or thoughts?
I'll just make a comment, Dan. I'm excited for the opportunity to move forward. Um, this is an incredible council. Amazing things were done under the four districts. Times are different now, and so we have an opportunity to, charter a new course moving forward under this new structure with three districts. I think it's going to be very insightful to see how the districts choose to, kind of organize themselves and come up with ways to really um, reach out to the different corners and different pockets of their districts so that the people that are scouting in those areas feel like they're part of something bigger. So this is a great opportunity to try some new things and provide new opportunities for our scouters.
Absolutely well said, Mark. Thank you. Okay, so again, we are moving fast on this, and I hope I've gotten some of the wheels turning in your heads about the possibilities that exist out there. And I would treat it as a brainstorming session. I would, come up with a whole bunch of different names and email them to me. Again, I will just assemble them and distribute them. I'm not going to alter submissions or put my own spin on things, but really, I'm just a conduit through which I will assemble and give to the districts as well as the executive board so that we can ensure we're following the Scouting America standard, as well as ensuring the districts are empowered to choose their names, but also watching to make sure that the council has an identity and we're not giving up the Far East Council's identity by, again, naming districts after things that don't make any sense for the area or for the nature of what we're doing for the scouts out here.
Dan, if I might, Sarah's communicating with me on Messenger, and she just
Sure.
wanted to share the following message that she's looking forward to working with all the countries within her district. And we know that
Yeah.
there's a lot of countries between the two districts she's currently serving. And I promise all of you that you will be well served by Sarah Ramos.
Yeah, and I think Sarah is 100% spot on. It is about all of us. It is not about individuals. It is not about any one country, and it is about these new districts and the way that we deliver scouting across the council and how we change the lives of youth.
Yeah.
So, what's in a name, I suppose, but that's just the naming portion of this.
Sarah went on to say, and the goal is to make all countries and places within the district feel welcome so we can serve all youth. So exactly to your point.
Yep.
We're very committed. Sarah and I and the executive committee, executive board are very committed to helping to make this successful.
Great, and all of you, there's 33 people on here, and again, this is it's a great turnout to discuss this and a great way to have this discussion in such a large forum. So I do appreciate your time, and I am sensitive to the fact that it is covering many different time zones, and we all have days to get to and nights to get to. So if you do have a question, my email is right there on the screen. I'm always available to each and every one of you as the council's commissioner, and I feel it is my duty and obligation to serve each and every one of these districts, each and every one of the units, and certainly each and every one of the scouts whose lives we're attempting to change. So anytime, please reach out and we'll take care of anything you need, as we should be your biggest number one resources at the commissioner level. And certainly the council staff and the district serving executives are there to back us up and to back you up. So great questions, great discussion. Thanks again. Please email me your ideas so that there can be a collaborative effort. And hopefully here in the next week, we're going to roll out some awesome names and celebrate what we're doing in the Far East Council.
Good.
Great. Thanks, everybody.